After 6 months of complete failure, my brother and I were finally able to close our first two wholesale deals for a total profit of $23,000. I'm gonna walk you through step by step exactly how we did it. Everything from how we generated the lead to the exact cold calling script that we developed to actually getting these properties under contract. And I know for a fact, if we were able to turn things around, you can too, as long as you follow the roadmap that I'm about to lay out for you. So make sure you're paying attention. So here are the screenshots of the first two deals we got of totaling $23,000, but this was only after the first 6 months of struggle. So when we first started wholesaling, we were completely lost. We had no guidance, no mentors, literally no idea what we were doing. We were doing everything that everyone else in the industry was teaching, right? Get a county list, go to PropStream, pull data from batch leads, and just start dialing. We were chasing the exact same leads as everybody else that was calling in our market. And what was happening? Literally 6 months of straight failure, no exaggeration. 6 months of burning through what little money we had, getting on the phone with sellers who had been called 10 times that day with zero motivation, yelling at us nonstop. We really just kept hitting a wall repeatedly, right? Like our conversations would go nowhere with people. We couldn't figure out why we weren't getting deals, why we weren't getting leads, and we were competing with the top guys in the industry with zero competitive edge, which was obliterating us. Like we spent nights trying to figure out what we were doing wrong, why we weren't able to get signed contracts. After 6 months of doing this every single day, we knew the concept made sense, right? Find distressed properties, get them under contract, sell it to a buyer. But something was absolutely missing from our formula. So we put our heads together, and after a lot of trial and error, we completely changed our approach and developed what we now call the ghost owner method. And this absolutely changed everything for us. So it was during this time that we finally had our first breakthrough. The ghost owner method is really about finding the right leads, right? We realized our biggest problem was we were fishing in the same pond as everybody else, and we needed to find motivated sellers that weren't getting bombarded with calls, or if they were, at least had real true motivation. So we created what we call the ghost owner method. It's really just a targeted approach focusing specifically on absentee owners. These are people who own properties but don't live in them, right? So they're essentially ghosts, invisible owners who have far less emotional attachment to these properties than, say, someone living in it with a family of 5, right? So down below is the actual criteria that our ghost owner data looks like. So absentee owners, they don't live in the property, right? They've got a minimum of 20% equity in their homes. It's non-LLC or corporation owned, so it's individual owners only. Property values between 0 and 300,000. Single family homes only. We don't want any commercial. We don't want any multifamily, and no recent listing activity within the last 6 months. So what we did is once we got this data, we bought a Mojo dialer subscription with a triple line dialer, allowing us to call up to 3 homeowners at once using the ghost owner criteria, which is far cry different from us single line dialing a list of sellers with Google Voice. So for those of you who might be a little interested in having your own dialer, this is Mojo's website. It's mojosells.com. We've used multiple dialers for years, from back when we were real estate agents to now, obviously, as investors. It's one of the most simplistic. It was super easy to use. It helped us obviously grow our business a ton. They've added a lot of features, it seems, since last time we used it, from having a CRM to be able to, organize your leads. They've got a mobile app now, which is awesome. So if it's something that you're looking to add into your business, I would definitely recommend at least trying a demo. I think it's a free 7 days. So, when we started calling these owners, we noticed something pretty cool, actually. While we definitely still spoke to people who would talk to other investors, obviously, the quality of lead, though, was drastically different, right? Previously, we thought that our issue was too many wholesalers were calling the same leads as us, but really it turned out is that we just had a lead quality issue. The sellers from our ghost owner list were consistently more motivated to make a deal happen than previously before. It's simply a lot easier to have somebody sell their property when they're not living in the home. When there's not a family of five that they have to move and there's no emotional attachment to overcome, it makes things a lot easier. So these absentee owners often had real problems they needed solved, right? Properties they were tired of managing from a distance, tenant headaches, ongoing maintenance issues, and the constant stress of owning a property they rarely even saw. As somebody that owns many properties out of state and does manage them from afar, I could completely understand how a small mom and pop shop or an individual owner just would not want to deal with it after 20 years. So within the first 2 weeks of implementing the ghost owner method, we saw a huge improvement in lead quality. We went from barely generating any leads to getting probably 2 to 3 quality leads every single day. And the next problem we learned is that having leads just wasn't enough, right? We also need to have a proven framework to guide the conversations and actually turn these leads into signed contracts, right? So if you guys want the exact same contract that we use in our business today to lock up 25 plus deals per month, it's in the description. It's 100% free. So, now kind of going over the conversion framework for getting contracts signed. So just so you guys can see, this is my actual CRM for my business. And we have put out a total of 87 offers this month so far. It's the 1st to the 31st. I'll even reload it here for everybody. So it is 87 offers so far that we've made. We've sent 26 contracts. We've locked up 14 of them so far with an estimated profit of $425,000 with an average fee of $30,407 per deal. Now, I'm filming this as of the 18th of May. So by the time the end of the month comes around, the contract sign will probably be closer to 25 to 30. So just wanted to show you guys the real numbers so you can see that this is something that we're actively still doing in our business today. We developed a structured script that allows us really to control every single call. This wasn't about being pushy, but it was about having a framework that helped us gather the information we need consistently, right? So the basic structure we follow, and you can adapt this to any of your own style, but the first portion is the introduction section, right? It's brief, professional, just lets them know who we are and what we do. Right? Number 2 is setting expectations. It's explaining our process simply so they understand what happens next, and also letting them know that they will be receiving an offer on this phone call. Too many people have been called by wholesalers and they never get an offer. This is one of the things that drives people crazy. So that's always why we make sure that they know that this is happening. Number 3 is motivation discovery. Questions that uncover why they might want to sell. Now, this is one of the most important parts and where almost every single wholesaler that tries fails. Number 4 is offer delivery, presenting the offer in a way that solves their true problems. So, like I said, most people neglect the true reason the seller is willing to sell their home, right? Oftentimes, this is the most critical. The true motivation behind a seller's decision will give more insight than anything else in a conversation, and it's going to allow us to tailor our offer specifically to what their real needs are. So some example questions you can say to get the true motivation out of them is things like timeline questions, right? Figuring out their preferred timeline to close. Property information, like systematic questions about occupancy status, right? Like how long have you been out of the property? Is it occupied? If it's not, why haven't you put a tenant in that property, right? Condition, talking about the structured questions about the interior and exterior of the property, right? How long has it been since the kitchen's been remodeled? If it's 1974 and no one's living in the home for 3 years, there might be a reason for that, right? Price exploration, right? Strategic approach to discussing their price expectations. One thing that we really like to ask all of these sellers is, if we were to give you $10,000 to put into your property, what would you do with it? Right? Everybody loves to think that their house is beautiful and it's amazing because there's emotional attachment to it. But when we start giving them realistic questions and they start thinking about it logically, it opens up a lot of detail for us to be able to make decisions on. And obviously, number 5 and 6, offer presentation and closing process, being incredibly consistent and clear with what our process is and how the presentation of the offer goes. So Really, the key to all of this, though, is just confidence, right? Having a structure gives you confidence. And even though we were new to this, we had to talk like we knew exactly what we were doing, even when we had no clue. So repetition is really what we use to build our confidence. And after hundreds of calls, the framework became second nature, and we didn't even need to read off the script. Honestly, 4 weeks after using the ghost owner method and our conversion framework, we finally got our first property under contract. And 2 weeks after that, we landed our second. This is actually a photo of me and my brother staying in Arizona during the holidays when this happened. And it was a pretty interesting experience. As you can see, we probably are a bit tired after a long day of work. But, after all of this comes the part that everybody overcomplicates, but it's actually one of the simplest, which is finding the buyer for the deal, right? So once we had these properties under contract, we needed to find a buyer, and we need to do it fast, because once we had these properties locked up, we only had 15 days to sell these contracts, right? Most people think finding a buyer is the hardest part of wholesaling, but it's actually one of the easiest, because if you have a good deal, you're always going to find a buyer for that deal. Instead of going the traditional route, right, like everybody teaches, building massive buyer lists of thousands of people, spam texting thousands of investors, we went straight to where the buyers were actively and sidestepped the ladder. We created a simple property marketing package that just highlighted the actual potential and profit of a property and posted them in local real estate investment Facebook groups, and just emphasized the value of the deal rather than just blasting out the address, hoping somebody might be interested. And this is actually what one of those examples looks like. So this is actually how we would set up those marketing packages. So we would have, some title that's a attention grabbing title. We would always look at the comparables and let people know that there were, properties selling for above, because we always try to get the best deal. And then this particular deal was a rental. So I put on there the comparable rental that Section 8 was paying $1,230 for a 3-bedroom. This was a couple of years ago. So that was great at the time. And then, of course, here was a actual link to the HUD amount. Put some highlights in there about there, right? So if it's close to a hospital, it's close to a university, easily accessible to the major freeways, by a local metro stop, so you don't have to have a car. And then we put the details underneath of the bed, bath, year, build, a little bit of information about the hardwood, laminate. And then we put the asking price, right? So they can see up here that there's already properties in the area that are selling without rehab for 65, and they're going to get it for 50. We then had a link for photos, so they could go right to it, see the property without having to go anywhere else. And then we also had the comparables that we were using, as well as a link to them as well. So at the bottom of that, we just let people know that the property was being delivered vacant. Please call to schedule any showings. This number doesn't work anymore, so you can text if you want, but no one's texting you back, or at least it's not going to be me. And then we had when we wanted the close of escrow to be. So this is a really easy way to give the buyers everything they need in one specific spot, so they're not consistently texting you, getting disorganized. And then for our first deal, right, like we had 3 interested buyers within 24 hours, and we assigned the contract for a $6,000 fee. In the second deal, we positioned it perfectly for a specific buyer that we kind of already knew would want the deal, that we had connected with, and that made us $17,000. So in total, our first 2 deals netted us $23,000 after 6 months of complete failure, all because we stopped following the crowd and just created our own method, right? And after that, all it came down to was utilizing the momentum that we had already have, right? So after closing these first 2 deals, that's when things really in our business started to ramp up. We had the capital to reinvest in our business, but also the confidence from closing deals and to know and scale what was working. So we actually doubled down on the ghost owner method, refining our targeting, refining our script, tracking every metric religiously, right? Like talk time, offers made, contract signed, deals closed. And as we grew, we eventually built out our own scaling and calling team in Egypt, actually, specifically trained on this method to talk to these sellers. So this allowed us to scale our operation, obviously, maintaining the quality and approach that we already knew was successful. And as we got more experienced in this, we developed a systematic approach for the back end to build a strong buyer system, matching the right properties with the right investors. So like today, we can literally assign almost any deal. Doesn't matter the condition, the timeline, the pricing, or the market, because we have a system in place that allows us to capitalize on every type of buyer. So not too long after our first deal, we were hitting 6-figure months, right? With just the two of us, just my brother and I. We didn't have any team, office, literally just our phones, our scripts, and daily consistency. And that's all it ended up taking. And others are doing this too. It's not just us, right? If you're watching this thinking, can I actually do this? I'm going to show you some of our students who have already implemented this exact strategy, right? Katie and BJ. I literally took this screenshot from today, May 18th, on my phone. I just asked them how much they have closing in the next 30 days, and they've got $105,000 closing in the next 30 days, which is mind-blowing, right? BJ used to sell cars, and now he's retired, working from his home on the golf course, making 6 figures in 30 days, which is crazy, right? So it's not something that's just worked for us. It's a proven system that works literally for anyone willing to follow it consistently. So just to kind of summarize for you guys, all of this in 3 steps. It's generating leads using the ghost owner method, converting those leads into contracts using our 9-part conversion framework, and 3, finding buyers and closing deals through strategically positioning the properties. It works in any market, any economy, because there's always going to be absentee owners with properties that they do not want to deal with. So if you guys are serious about getting started in wholesaling the right way, and want to avoid the 6 months of failure and trial and error we went through, click the link below in the description to learn about our one-on-one coaching program. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.